with a very special guest because Patreon supporter Luke put in a request. He wanted to know my top 5 favorite horror scores, and immediately when he said that, I said to myself, I have to bring in someone to do this video with me, and it had to be Dorina. Guys, Dorina is here.
I'm here.
I'm so happy.
Thanks for having me, Perri.
I'm so happy you wanted to do this.
Well, yeah.
You wanted to come visit and say hello to Dewey, even though he's hiding at the moment.
I mean, I really like you, but I'm mainly here for Dewey.
That's totally understandable. I feel like that is the story of my life.
Yes, he's
at
hiding
this point.
behind Pennywise right now, and it's really disturbing, but I love it.
He's gonna come out eventually. He'll come out and he'll jump like right in the middle of this table and hopefully not turn the recorder off because we've got some important stuff to talk about right now.
Yes, the most important, film music. Hello.
We are gonna list our 5 favorite. And I'm emphasizing the word favorite here because it's favorite right now. These lists can change. You could find a new movie that'll crack the list. You can just feel like listening to something else a different week. You are not locked into this, but right now, at this point in time, these are our 5 favorite horror scores. You are the guest. Do you want to do the honors first?
Yes, this was the hardest thing that Perri's ever asked me to do because you guys know I'm a huge film music nerd, and it was so hard to pick 5. So I wanted to kind of have some really new ones and some old ones. So my number 5 is classic because Bernard Herrmann is probably the guy that if it wasn't for his music and all these Hitchcock movies, that the movies wouldn't have been the same, similar to like when John Williams works with Steven Spielberg, And so I think, it's cliche and everybody knows it, but Psycho is one of the best horror scores of all time.
You absolutely have to have that.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that it would be on my top 5, but I actually think it's also my favorite because no matter how many times you listen to not just the shrieking, sound from the bathroom scene, but just the patrol car theme where like they're just driving in the car and there's nothing but the creepy like strings going on like dun 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 dun. It's so good. I love it, and I love listening to it over and over again.
I'm so happy you went with that one because I was kind of anticipating that and bumped it off my list. But I'm going to take a cue from you right now, and I'm going to make my first selection something of the more classic vibes, something that might be a little, I don't know, cliche or on many lists out there. But I have to go with John Carpenter's Halloween. And admittedly, right now, the 2018 Halloween score is what's on my running playlist, but it obviously all started here. And the funny thing is, I'll never forget having a backwards introduction to the Halloween score because before I ever saw the 78 Halloween, I saw Scream. And when that footage pops up in Scream, it's like, that is instantly what my mind goes to when I listen to that from the Halloween soundtrack or from the actual movie. I immediately go back to Scream, which you guys know is my second favorite movie of all time. So I will always have much fondness for that score and freaking John Carpenter. That concert, I'm so glad you encouraged everyone to go because it was one of the best nights I've ever had.
I dragged Perri, Mark Ellis, I forget who else, Haley was there.
Erlinger was there.
Yeah, and we had a blast listening. When he played the Halloween theme, everyone lost their minds. It was so good.
The old school 78 score just like perfectly bled in. I was recording that when it happened, and I rewatched that video too many times.
Yeah, I was too drunk to record it, but I'm glad you did. So
sometimes I'm in control.
Yeah. So my number 4 is actually Halloween 3 by John Carpenter and Alan Howard. Hi, Dewey. He agrees with me.
He does.
So I love the first Halloween is obviously a super, it's a classic. Everybody knows it. It's a great score. But I love the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It's a super cheesy, ridiculous movie, but it's very different. Obviously, Michael Myers doesn't show up. And the score is really cool. It's all synthesizer stuff, and it's very different than the first Halloween. And it's almost like if you listen to Chariot of Pumpkins, which is my first track on it, it's almost as if Vangelis had made it. I love it so much. And it's just, if you watch the movie, it's really creepy.
It's always a good selection, too. I will move on to, let's go with another very familiar one, or one that I imagine is on many lists out there. I've got to go with The Shining. And in particular, just that opening when you get the horns and it's a really deep, sinister sound. And there's just so much operating in that movie to create that kind of claustrophobic, trapped, and really like terrified feeling. And when you have that with the camera work paired with the score from scene to scene, it really just, it like sucks you in and it doesn't let go. And it's so key here. I really wanted to have so many Stephen King adaptations on this list because I want to give like an extra little shout out to the Christine score because I really love that one too. But if I had to isolate myself to one Stephen King adaptation for this particular video, hands down The Shining.
I actually had The Shining on my list and I knocked it out, so good choice because I love that. It's by Wendy Carlos and I forget her other name.
Wendy Carlos, Rachel Elkins, and also
Penderecki is, I mean, that was music that was used that wasn't actually composed for the film. And it's actually featured on like the big scenes, like the climactic scenes, but you got to hand it over, like Wendy and Rachel did such a good job of making these crazy noises that aren't necessarily like themes or melodies, but that fits so well with how disturbing and slow moving and creepy this movie is.
Okay, so you're up to 3 now.
Okay, so I'm gonna cheat because this is a tie, and I think it's a fair tie.
Okay.
I have both Fright Nights on here. Okay, because I love the score of the original Fright Night by Brad Fiedel, who did, you know him, he did Terminator and other really cool movies. And the Fright Night, the remake, I actually really enjoyed. It's one of my favorite horror remakes. And Ramin Djawadi, who does, you guys would know him from Game of Thrones, he did this score that nobody has listened to because not a lot of people watch this movie, and it's personally my favorite modern horror score. I love it so much. It's super orchestral, it's super melodic, which we don't get to hear a lot nowadays, especially in horror movies where you get a lot of background type scores, right? This is a really good featured score throughout the whole movie. I highly recommend it. I listen to it all the time.
That's a good call. I'm glad you gave the Fright Night remake a little love too, because I think that one deserves it. I'm not really like ranking these, I guess, anymore, but I feel like
we were,
like next, just because we are ranking and these other two that I have here would top this one if I were ranking it. So I'm just gonna go with It Follows next. It's actually probably the most modern movie I have on this list. Composer on that is obviously Disaster Piece, and that is another one. It actually reminds me a lot of The Shining, especially because the way that movie is shot with the mobile camera and the slow pans and things like that. And when you pair that with that particular score, it's something that gets under your skin. And even though It Follows isn't a movie that's confined to, let's say, a single space, a single hotel. It's that idea of you constantly being followed and feeling trapped. And this is one of those situations where everything just comes together so beautifully. And I love the score on this one. This is another one actually that I've put on my run. It's so weird when I take some of this stuff and I put it on my running playlist.
And then like a ghost STD is following you while you're running.
A little bit. That's the thing though. It's like when your mind immediately goes back to that moment in the movie and the adrenaline that you have while you're watching that movie kicks in and it kind of like lights a fire under your ass and you run faster. That's why this is not on my list, but I have one of the later portions of the Us score now on my running playlist, and it's the one where it intercuts between the dancing scene and the fight scene.
So
and every single time that kicks in, I'm just like off and running.
That's when you get crazy.
Yes.
It's funny because I'm not a huge fan of It Follows as a movie as everyone else, but the score is great.
Yes.
You can't say anything bad about that. So, okay, I'm still ranking them. So my number 2. I love Philip Glass. He's one of my favorite composers of all time. And one of my favorite horror scores is Candyman. So good. Because
that is classic.
It's so, especially the music box version of Helen's theme. It's so creepy. It's like an ice cream truck is driving by and is gonna mess with you. I love it so much.
I am so curious to see if they keep the bar that high with this remake. What exactly is happening with that? I don't know. I have faith. I have my fingers crossed. We shall see.
We shall see, man. Tom York did a good job with the new Suspiria, so you never know.
That's very true. All right.
Hire Johnny Greenwood.
I'm so stressed about these two, but I'm going to bump one that I'm feeling pretty confident in right now, and I'm going to say my next favorite is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
You cheat!
Is that really cheating,
No,
They're
kidding.
from Halloween Town.
Yes.
So when I saw that movie for the very first time, I feel really terrible because I made my grandparents and my parents take me to see that in theaters more times than I can count. And then on top of that, I was a god-awful piano player. I had lessons for too many years of my childhood, was never able to play. The only time I was ever motivated to learn and really play a piece was The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Which one?
Sheet music.
which song or which theme?
A little bit of everything. I like This Is Halloween quite a bit.
Yeah,
that was
one.
Definitely up there. But the sad truth is, I would practice and never be able to play. But still to this day, that music, I can still sing it to myself, not out loud. No one needs to hear that. But that right there is a classic. When it comes to the Christmas versus Halloween movie debate, you know what? You can have the best of both worlds. Exactly. That movie is both.
I agree. And it is, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I liked it when nobody liked it. I just want to say that I liked it before it was cool.
It's probably just me. Like, we just didn't know each other at the time.
That's true. Perri and we finally found each other. But no, it's obviously it's a great score. Not just the songs, but it's fantastic. Like props to Danny Elfman for being a badass and giving us that wonderful, wonderful score. Like all the songs are perfect. Like you can listen to that soundtrack over and over again.
Yeah.
So my favorite horror score of all time, may not come as a surprise for those of you who know who I am, Suspiria by Goblin. I think Goblin is has made a lot of the coolest scores, like horror scores ever. In the 70s, like they did, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, which is a great score. You know, they did other Italian movies like Deep Red, Profondo Rosso, and but Suspiria is such an artistic film that visually it's so stunning, and to add this crazy over-the-top ridiculous melodic score is the visuals and sonically they just mesh so well together, and it's not just the main theme that's so cool, but then they have these other tracks like Witch and Sighs, and it's literally just them recording like creepy sounds. It's so cool. Like not a lot of people had done that by then, you know. So and then this was like what, 78 I think, or 77, I forget.
70s.
Yeah, somewhere in the 70s.
I kind of want to guess 77.
Yeah. So when Roca was like 50.
Yeah,
anyways. But yeah, it's nothing can compete with that. I think Tom York did a great job with the remake, but it's Suspiria by Goblin I think is the best of all time.
My last one here is going to be no surprise to anybody, and I have to go to the movie that I can listen to the score straight through and be able to picture and hear the entire movie from start to finish. And it's Scream.
Not surprising. It's a good one, though.
I was this close to kind of pushing the horror limits and including Jurassic Park on this list, too. Because Jurassic Park technically is a monster movie, and monster movies have their toe in the horror department. But I wanted to keep this list a little more classic, and I couldn't just put Jurassic Park on every list I do on
Jurassic
this channel.
Park doesn't really sound creepy. There's like a little bit of it, but not as much as Scream.
All right, not to derail it, but Jurassic Park, in particular, the opening sequence has a really foreboding score underneath it that I absolutely love.
You're right. That's actually true. Yeah.
Scream, though, is one of those ones from start to finish. I can listen to that score and know every single beat of that story. And also, I think the incorporation of popular songs from that time is so key. Because when I think about those scores, I think about the exact moment in the movie, but also where I was in my life at the time. I mean, a lot of the times when I'm ranking my favorite thing, it's tied to nostalgia because it all made me the person. I mean, really, when I look at this list, in particular when it comes to The Shining, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Scream, this made me the movie lover I was today, and I'm so proud of it, and I love being able to revisit those feelings through the score.
Uh-oh.
It's okay.
He's going to break the audio.
Somehow he's never stepped on that, which is the magic of it all. He's like a little rag doll right now.
But no, that's a good choice. And I think, Marco Beltrami did it, right? And I think he's been around for so long, and he's such an underrated, not a lot of people talk about him, right? Like we talk about John Williams and Hans Zimmer, James Newton Howard, but I think, he's great. I think everything he does is great. He can do any genre. Logan is one of my favorite superhero soundtracks. It's very sad, but I love it. And Scream also, you're right to mention the songs, there's great songs on there, like Nick Cave, when that Nick Cave song comes on, it's classic.
That Nick Cave song is tied to Scream for life for me. I will never hear that song without going immediately back to my second favorite movie of all time. And I still have a little Jurassic love on this set. Oh, see, Score Talk makes Dewey happy.
He's so happy.
It lured him to the set. He's so happy you're here. He's so happy you're paying attention to him. Dorina, thank you so much for doing this list with me. Can you let everybody know where to find your wonderful work on the internet?
Yes, it's not that wonderful, but she's very nice.
It is.
I am at Evil Dorina on Twitter and on Instagram. You can find me on Collider Live, on some of their shows. We just did a really cool Suspiria podcast with Haley on The Witching Hour. I show, and you guys see me on Collider all the time. But I'm also have my own channel, which is called Super Dork House. I also interview people on Toxic Google. And thank you so much for having me, Perry. This was super fun. I just want to hang out with your cat all the time.
He is accepting visitors anytime. People come here to visit him, not me, like we established, but lucky enough, we get to do videos with you for that reason. So, guys, thank you so much for watching this list. Luke, thank you so much for suggesting it because it was a blast, and I'm really excited I had an excuse to bring Dorina to this set. Guys, thanks for watching, like and share, and I will see you soon with more Nemiroff ranking videos.